Good morning. I want to take a few minutes and reflect on a scripture passage that I think has some relevance and meaning given what's unfolding in the landscape of America today and in the aftermath of the brutal killing of George Floyd on the streets of Minneapolis, an unarmed black man at the hands of four white police officers. The passage, the biblical passage that I want to reflect on, is a familiar one. It's the image of the lion and the lamb lying together. It's an image that inspires many of us, especially those of us committed to the cause of peace. To think that natural enemies would lay aside their differences and coexist in peace with one another is in fact something that inspires us deeply. But I want to point out a couple of things. And I also want then to relate this, not just to what happened with George Floyd, but to the ongoing dynamics of white power, white privilege, and white supremacy as they continue to manifest themselves at every level of American culture and society. So this is what I want to point out. First of all, the lion and the lamb aren't like two equivalent enemies who constantly are going at each other and trying to defeat each other. It's not like the US and Russia in the Cold War when they practiced what was known as mutually assured destruction. And both sides were relatively equally armed, and the strategy of staying that way kept them at bay. This is not like two NFL football teams going at each other, whereas we often say on any given Sunday, one side could win. This is the lion and the lamb, and they don't relate to each other as mutually armed enemies. They relate to each other as prey and predator. It's not an even playing field. And so this vision of a lion and a lamb laying down together is only possible when the predator loses every aspect of its being that allows it to cast fear and wield power over the prey. Ask yourself, under what circumstances does the lamb voluntarily lie in a den with its predator there and do so with comfort and peace and joy, knowing that this is the way it should be, and not without fear or anxiety or the threat that at any moment, if the lion changes its mind about this arrangement, the lamb won't be lying there at a pool of blood. The only circumstances in which I imagine this happening are when the lion loses whatever it has as an advantage over the lamb. Its musculature, its jaws, its teeth, its claws, its arrogance, its memory of what it was like to hold power over another. It is only under circumstances like that that the lamb has any hope or desire of lying with the lion and not worrying or being afraid or anxious. There's nothing natural about people with white skin being more powerful than people with black skin, and yet the people with white skin have constructed an unjust system that distributes wealth and power in such a way that we have created this relationship of predator to prey. Now, I know that most white people don't see themselves as predators. That's part of the privilege. We can create a narrative in which we're the good, kind people. And yet, I want us to note the difference between the worlds that we walk in. I heard Joy Reid on a newscast this morning when asked how she and African descendant people feel about what's unfolding in Minneapolis, and her words were this: We feel like we're being hunted. There's not a black person in America that doesn't feel that way. I remember the killing of Michael Brown in Ferguson. This is 5 miles from where I grew up. And I asked myself, every day that I'm in the office in downtown Cleveland and I step over the curb and illegally cross the street, not at the crosswalk because it's not convenient, but right there in front of my office to get to the place where I want to buy a slice of pizza, I don't have to worry about whether or not A, a police officer is going to stop me for doing that, or B, even if a police officer does, that I might end up dead. And yet that's exactly what happened to Michael Brown. He took a step over the curb and onto the street, and instead of being on what was a broken and cracked sidewalk, walked down the street. And it prompted a police officer to stop, which would never happen to me. And in that encounter, Michael Brown ended up being shot in the back and killed. I can't imagine a set of circumstances where that would happen to me. Nor can I imagine a set of circumstances where I'm sitting in my car and moments later am dragged out of my car by police, put in handcuffs, sat on a sidewalk, marched into the street with handcuffs on while being subdued by a police officer who then for 8 minutes puts his knee on my neck until I can't breathe anymore and I'm dead. Repeatedly calling out, I can't breathe, I can't breathe, I can't breathe, sir. And then in desperation calling out the name of his mother. All for naught. I can't imagine a set of circumstances where that happens to me. If you're black in America, literally, every step you take is fraught with danger. And every breath you take is a gift that a white man allows you to breathe. Now, I know that's not existentially true, but it's practically true. When every step is fraught with danger and every gift can be stripped away from you by a white man who will be exonerated for his actions, then it's true that as a black and African descended person in America, you live in a very different world than anybody with white skin. And so this image of the lion and the lamb lying in a den, again, having white skin doesn't make you by nature a natural predator to people of black skin. You've just chosen that way. And the truth is that all of us who are white accept those steps that we take without danger and that breath that we take without anguish or anxiety as God-given, and pay little attention to those who have to walk dangerous streets and breathe uncertain breaths. We are, in this biblical metaphor, the lion. And these systems of white power, white privilege, and white supremacy that arm us with the teeth of the lion and the claw of the lion and the musculature of the lion and the memory now of centuries of carrying that power in our bones, our body, and our blood, the memory of that, even long after the systems of injustice have been dismantled, will create within us a longing, a make America great again kind of mentality that would wish and hope that once the system is dismantled, we could have that way of life again. And until every advantage that we have given ourselves that makes us predators, in every memory of what that was like and the desire to go back to that way of being, until all of that is lost, there is no peaceful coexistence between the lion and the lamb. And so if, like me, you are white in America and you are inspired by this biblical image, what is required of you, what is required of us, what is required of me is the active participation in the dismantling of these systems of oppression that make it possible for a white police officer, a Darren Wilson, A white police officer on the streets of Ferguson, Missouri, or in the case of Eric Garner in New York, or in the case of George Floyd in Minneapolis, to act as if knowing that what they are about to do, wrong and evil and criminal though it may be, will lead to their complete and full exoneration. These are the systems that we have to dismantle. If that biblical image is to have any meaning to us whatsoever, then we must become active agents in the deconstruction of these systems of injustice that have perpetuated in America since the day we landed foot on these shores over 400 years ago. Now is the time. It's long past the time. But if these images, these metaphors, these powerful stories from Scripture truly inspire us, and if we truly claim to be agents of God's shalom, then nothing short of this is what is demanded. Lift up your voice. Empower yourself to be active agents of dismantling white power, white privilege, and white supremacy. See yourselves in this metaphor as the lion, if you are white, the predator, and become active agents of God's shalom in the dismantling of white power, white privilege, and white supremacy. It's the only pathway to justice. And every time an Eric Garner or a Trayvon Martin or a Breonna Taylor or a George Flynn has their life taken by a white police officer, we are co-conspirators as white Christians. We are co-conspirators who continue to take our safe steps while the streets down which African descended people must walk are dangerous. And we continue to breathe free air, knowing that every breath an African descended person takes in America is fraught with danger. This cannot be the world we want. This cannot be the condition that we settle for. Let there come a day when the lion and the lamb lie together in peace. The lion having sacrificed everything that he once held as power over the lamb. And as we have seen in streets across America before, when it becomes clear that the law will not protect, we must realize that if the lion as predator cannot willingly give up its power over the lamb, then the lion and the lamb will find themselves lying together once again in a pool of blood. And that cannot be what we desire.